All right, well, time for another little update. Hasn't been one in a few weeks because I've been trying to get things sorted out and try to figure out what's going on and try to get some resolution to the issue. Kept thinking some of the other videos, we kept thinking it was this or that, or, had different ideas of what it was. Well, those were all wrong, and I kept hating to mislead and go, oh, we got it, and then it wasn't it, and oh no, we think we got, I'm like, yeah, forget it. So I'm just going to wait until kind of got things settled down and figured out. So as you can see, the engine is out because I had to pull the engine out. It is sitting over here, as you can see. What it turned out to be was that this winter, when I sent the cylinder head in on the passenger side to be fixed after it had that issue with the rocker that kind of ate itself and all those issues, if you remember. And they put that insert in and did a valve job on it and fixed all that stuff, blah blah blah. Well, what it turns out it was that they screwed up on the valve job, and they took way too much off on the intake side of things, on the passenger side. So all the intake valves, when they did the valve job on that, they took way too much off, and so with the cam in there, it was pushing down and holding the intake valves open just slightly. So it was not the rockers, wasn't the bent valves, however we did. So I did not bend the valves when we thought we had the timing issue and whatnot. I did have two exhaust valves that were bent. Now, whether that was from the timing being off, I don't know. Or if those were bent at some other point in the past. I guess I don't know that for sure. But I did have two bent exhaust valves, but all the intake valves were totally fine. So when they did that, like I said, they took too much off just the intake side. With the cams in there, it was slightly pushing down on that and holding the valves open. So that was the entire issue. So it wasn't, like I said, it wasn't the rockers, wasn't the valves, it wasn't the lifters, all that stuff I bought and spent a lot of money this summer buying stuff, as we thought, oh, it must be this, oh, it must be that. Never thought at all that the shop I sent it to is the shop that ported it and stuff, and are supposed to be professionals, and by no means would I ever thought that they did that, because why would they? They're professionals at doing that. They know how much to take off. They shouldn't have been doing that. But that's what it turned out to be. The other thing, kind of crazy of interest to this, was that when I sent it to L&M Engines, the guys that did the custom cams for me, one thing that he noticed, which I totally didn't even notice, was that, if you remember right, we had oil leaking out of the heads, and there was that little plug that we couldn't figure out. I talked to these guys, they like, I don't know, we don't know what plug it is, and I had problems with Ford trying to figure it out. Eventually an engineer at Ford figured out what I was talking about and got the right part number for that little insert in the oil valley here, so oil would come out. Well, turns out where that was, when they took it out, when they put it back in, they put it in right here. Which L&M found that he's like, hey, there's not supposed to be a plug here in that, which also explains why these chains never got super tight, and could never figure out why. Well, because they put the plug in this hole instead of down here, and so the oil pressure was never getting up into here, and of course tightening the chains down. So that was part of the issue there with that. So so I am extremely disappointed in that place in Arizona that did the work. The other thing that was kind of interesting is, so I sent that head to L&M for him to take a look at it, and he figured that stuff out. He figured it out, did the testing, shaved the valves down a little bit so everything was good, and turned it around in 2 days. 2 days. Every time I sent that to Arizona, to the other place, 4 to 6 months. And that was with me having to bug them all the time about, is it done? How are we coming? What's going on with it? 4 to 6 months, the times I've sent it into them. Sent it to L&M, turned around in 2 days. Unbelievable. So that is what the deal was. So hopefully everything will be good now. So what they did was they said, instead of replacing the seats and all that kind of stuff and regrinding it and doing all that, once he figured out what was, it wasn't a lot, that it was too much. So he just shaved the top of the valve stems just a little bit, and now everything is good. So he had asked for the driver's side one to be sent to him just because of these issues. Even though the other side had compression and good leak down, he wanted to just double check it to make sure that they didn't make any other mistakes on that other side, even though it looked like it was, good. But again, we didn't run the car for more than, 30 seconds or at a time, those couple times. So he wanted to check it over and make sure that everything was good on that other one and we didn't have any other issues. And I didn't think about it until I sent it to him, but he'll probably check and make sure there's not a plug in the other side over there too. And that's where one of the other plugs went also. So we will see what he comes back with. But I sent the one head in, got it back. As you saw, I got it back on, and I'm working on getting everything back together. The other head I sent off late this week. He'll have it middle of the week. Hopefully he'll check it and there won't be any issues or anything, and he'll get it turned around and get it shipped back to me quickly. And I can then hopefully get everything back together and get it back in. If we get good air, and it doesn't get super cold, for the next, few weeks, maybe till Thanksgiving or so, if we can hold out and still be, around 50 degrees, during the day. With daylight savings time up, I wouldn't be able to do anything at night after work, but maybe on the weekends, if we stay good and I don't have any issues, I can get it back in the car. Maybe we can do a little bit of tuning on the car yet before it's time to put it away and they salt the roads and I can't have the car out. But sorry, didn't mean to make it too long here. That's kind of where we're at. That's what the ultimate issue turned out to be all summer long, all this year. It wasn't my timing that I timed it right, or wasn't all those other things we thought it was. It was that they took too much off the head, and that was the entire issue. Had they done it right, could have been driving the car all summer. So kind of disappointed and upset about that. And the other thing that's kind of funny about that, one last quick story with this, is I tried reaching out to them several times after we kind of narrowed it down to it was either the head or the cam. After we had tested everything else and tried replacing everything else, we knew it was one of those two things. And so I had emailed them on the head and just be like, hey, we've kind of narrowed it down to everything but this. And he's like, no, it sounds like a rocker issue and stuff like that. And I'm like, okay, and then that was during the time we had, tried replacing rockers and all that kind of stuff, and it wasn't that. And I said, no, we had replaced rockers and, we did all that stuff, and it's got to be something with the intake on the head. And I was asking him some questions about it because a mechanic friend of mine was helping me, and he had some questions about this or that. Did they shave the heads, or did they shave the valves and stuff like that? And they're like, I don't know. We don't really know. The guy that did it wasn't here anymore and whatnot. And I was like, really? You don't have any, records in my file of what you guys did in case you had to repeat it if I had to send it back? And they're like, no, they just didn't want to help. And finally, after sending him a couple more emails with some additional questions, basically he was just rude, and he basically said, hey, we're only a handful of people here. I don't have time to help you. And basically blew me off and basically told me don't ask him any more questions, and don't email him anymore, because he doesn't have time to help me, and they don't seem to have records of what they did to anything. So they don't have any idea. So I'm like, all right, fine. I understand you're busy, and if I have any other head work, trust me, it won't be coming to you. I'll be sending it to somewhere else. Didn't even acknowledge that. Didn't say, hey, sorry, I was having a bad day, blah, blah, blah. Versus L&M, I emailed him because I'm like, I need somebody who's an engine builder to help me. And I'm like, I just don't know. I've kind of come to the end of my rope here. And a mechanic friend was kind of the same thing. He's not a Ford guy, really. So he's like, I don't know. He goes, you really need a Ford engine builder to kind of help lead us in a direction. I emailed Michael at L&M, and I was like, hey, I just need help. Here's the situation. Here's what we've done so far. I'm like, I'm sure you're busy. I understand if I need to pay you, for your time, but I just need help to try to figure this out. And he was very gracious and was like, no, man. He's like, you don't need to pay me. I'm more than willing to try and help you over email and stuff like that. Obviously, when I sent him the stuff, I had to pay him, but he was more than willing to help me try and diagnose this via email without charging at all, and took time out of his day to do that. Versus, people I paid good money to do the heads didn't give me the time of day and didn't want to help at all. So that's kind of the situation. Sorry it's so long, but that's kind of where we're at, and that's why I haven't made videos in a few weeks. But on the positive side, we finally got it figured out, and now we are on the mend, and I know the car runs because it ran on 4 cylinders. So when I get it back together, we shouldn't have any issues, I hope, fingers crossed, because she wants to run. So thanks everybody for watching. Sorry it was so long, but that's the update and where we are at. Thank you. Bye.